Okay, hi Melanie. According to Jennifer, this is everybody.
Great. I don't even have to count for a quorum. That's awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. And the minutes from the last meeting are linked within the agenda. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
And I second.
All right. Any discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. And now we're going to review the report, the site visit report.
Yeah, I'll walk through that, Melanie.
Okay.
Really, you've had a chance to go through the report. Really, it's page 5 really stresses Douglas Avenue, which of course was the intensive focus of the previous Zoom meeting, which was the joint meeting between facilities and research and collections. So I think everyone here except Kathy kind of heard. So Kathy, the nickel tour of Douglas Avenue is we're getting things set up to remove the asbestos. The team that is basically in charge of allocating space over there is fully up to speed. And so we're just going to go through a process of when we have a contractor on board in May, Jonathan?
Going out for a bid,
Right.
bid in May.
It's approximate date of going to bid will be May. That's what we're told. So with that, that should lead to a conclusion of the asbestos portion of the work in fall of next year. And so the team will be, as necessary, moving materials around to avoid the construction and so forth. And that's also going to inform their future activities over there at Douglas Avenue over the next year or so. So far, so good with that. What we do owe AAM in 2030 is a 5-year progress report. So I fully anticipate that by then we'll have substantial substantial work done on the building, if not finished by then. So that would be optimal, of course. So that was basically the gist, because you see here from the table, these are things that they're a little concerned about. So, they noticed that specifically with Douglas Avenue, as it is now, it will not be appropriate for collection storage and so forth. So as it stands, we will need to rectify that. So anything else want to add to that, Jonathan?
Yeah, just for those, it is a maintenance reserve project. So there is capital already assigned to the project. So it's not a situation where we have to go back to the legislature for approval for capital to move on the project. So that'll help expedite things.
Yeah, and we're certainly not using our appropriation nor any of our foundation-based funds. So, and then the second point, this was more, you see here, I don't remember what page this next portion on, but it has to do with, just like in our 2010 report, in 2010, when we got accreditation last time, the team had noted, it's like, well, you guys are isolated. We don't know how to address this. So in this report, the site review team had recommended the use of external firms as a possible mechanism to move new visitors to VMNH. And I'll let Ryan kind of bring you up to speed on that.
Yeah, so I think the general idea was looking at bus tour companies and other tours and management firms. So that's something we've done in the past. We did a lot of it leading up to the the opening of this building. So we're in the process now of reaching out, looking at possible future tourism grants that can help fund that. Most of those are fee-based. So it's going to be up to us to weigh the cost benefit, and look at different options and find a firm that's interested as well. Normally they're heavily focused on larger urban centers, but that's not to say we're not close enough to Greensboro or Roanoke or other places. So we're doing the research now, but hopefully that's something we can either move on or find an alternative, but we're definitely looking into it.
Okay, was that it for that? Oh,
Oh, yeah.
I believe so.
okay. Let me
There were other areas of the report where they had some comments and so forth. The rest of those, we really feel are things that we can address with our day-to-day operation and are not necessarily, needed to address within specifically the strategic plan.
So what is the current status of the books and papers that are being stored there?
They're in boxes. They are organized. That is, when they eventually are unpacked, they will, they're not just packed willy-nilly, like by size or anything like that. They went into the boxes in the same order that they would be shelved.
But the concern was the environmental conditions within that room.
Yes.
And what can you tell us about that?
We're going to do what we did with the taxidermy. We're going to install the window AC units to address temperature and humidity. And we do have Jill going over there running the hobos to look at temperature, humidity, and I can't remember if there's anything else that she's monitoring over there.
I'm not getting the idea that anything is, I don't understand. So we've known about this for a while now. Is that room that they're stored in now part of the stabilized part of the building or not?
At the moment, no. Now, the hobo readers came back as a fairly stable condition, but we're going to go ahead because of the AM report. We're just going to go ahead and add the AC units to ensure that that we got backup on them.
Is there a timeline in mind for that?
It won't take long at all.
Like what? Months, weeks, days?
The AC units are downstairs, currently in the museum, so
Okay.
it's underway.
I guess this week, Art, I believe.
Well, it's good to hear. Like I say, I've grumbled for several years now about the state of our library, and I understand why it got shut down and shuffled out. But if we're not in a position to care for these materials properly, then we really ought to be looking for another home for them. And I hope that's not the case, but that's for you all to decide. But certainly in the meantime, I think it's critical that they be stored in a stable part of the building where conditions are, conducive to taking care of paper materials.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's not optimal. None of this is optimal, right? This is why we're renovating an old building. But all that said, we did select the room that had the most stability, and we made sure to quantify that.
Well, forgive me if I'm going back over old ground, so I would appreciate if you could bring me up to speed. Why did those materials leave the Starling Avenue facility in the first place? Was there pressure to use that space immediately for something else? I know we've talked about a care facility there, but that's never gotten off the ground yet. So what was the urgency to get the materials out of the building in the first place?
Well, if just to review, the 5-year plan that we just completed did have expectations on the staff to create the space for the Early Childhood Learning Center.
Right.
And as such, we moved the library. We then have attempted to sell the compactors. Unfortunately, that has not gone well. The nibbles we got on those materials are not forthcoming. So we just had a meeting today, in fact, in which we are going to get some help to disassemble those compactors and move them over to Douglas Avenue. But we're not going to be able to use them right away because we'll just have to disassemble them and shift them around for work done by the contractors. So we're doing the best we can with what we have. And so I know this is out, well, it's not really outside the purview. This is strategic planning. The we made 2 shots at attempting to get federal funds to create the Early Childhood Learning Center. They got shot down both times. The first time it was shot down, we were told, no, this is a great project, reapply. This time we got shot down and said, in this environment, you're not getting anything. And so we understand that.
So
So
the push was to get the books out of the room, then it was to try and free up the space to find a buyer for the compactor system. Is that the practical reason they were moved out before the space was ready in Douglas?
Essentially, we weren't gonna be able to sell them with the books on the shelves. I know you don't think that, but I'm just saying that, we just did our kind of what we thought were logical steps to prepare the compactors for sale and movement to accommodate the funding that we had requested through the federal government. Our kind of loose plan in-house yet that we haven't really discussed with the foundation is we're going to form, I guess, an ad hoc committee to look at new funding opportunities that we can populate the Early Childhood Learning Center.
Well, I understand the need to get them out to, like I say, to do something with the compactors. I get that. But if air conditioning units are going to go in the space in Douglas Avenue this week, as you say, that will certainly help. But like you quipped the other day at the meeting, short-term solutions become long-term problems. So I'd like to see something in place to preserve that library. And if we aren't going to do that, then let's get it somewhere where it's either looked after or it's out of our responsibility. Let somebody else take care of it who's capable and willing to do so.
Understood. We'll definitely move in that direction. We don't consider that a solution at all. It is merely just going through the process, so to speak. So we're not at a place where we think we have even a short-term solution. So it is not our intent to create that long-term problem, because I agree with you 100% on that.
Thanks, Joe.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks for the update. And then we also have the presentation that was presented recently at the full board meeting. Of course, I think everyone here was there. Is there anything specific you wanted to point out there, Joe?
You know what? I'll make it more of an opportunity to ask questions. So what I'm going to share screen. Give me 1 second here.
Okay. And I'll just share for the group that our goal would be that that we provide any feedback to staff so that they can develop a draft that our board can approve at our next meeting. And this would be the publication that is presented or PDF'd and shared widely and broadly.
That is correct. And for the next strategic plan, these are, as far as the first part, achieving mission. We have a number of goals lined up here. We are in discussions internally here about the measures that will overlay on them. So that's what you'll be seeing in advance of the full board meeting in November. And hopefully all will go well, so we can get approval of these different points and their timelines and any quantitative metrics that go with them. So some of these are going to be, they are what they are. We know what the timeline is. So if you go down to the 5th point, celebrate VA 250, well, that's very much time constrained. I am going to make an edit. If we go to the next one down right in the middle, develop market 3 traveling exhibits, we may have overreached on that one. So we may be providing some flexibility there for 1 to 2 traveling exhibits, because they are, while they're good to do and they are a revenue source and everything else, we just need to make sure we have the capacity to not only rent them out and move them, but to care for them and so forth. So we're deciding maybe kind of put the brakes on there a little bit, just so as not to promise too much there. And then some of these other things are going to be a little more open-ended. So if we go to the third from the bottom, the VMNH Waynesboro branch campus progress, we can put timeline on that, but the timeline would be an optimal timeline, right? There are a lot of things that we don't control as far as the issuance of funding. So those are some of the things that will come about, and we go to the second part, great sustainable impact. Pretty much the same thing here. We've got situations where we do not have the capacity to put on a definite timeline. So the second to last one, the funding opportunity, we can identify the core funding opportunities. We can do that and have that done as one of our first bits of business, right? There's no problem there. But as far as when we can procure the funding, that will at this point in time be difficult to anticipate down the line. But certainly we can put metrics on there about making asks of significance in support of the population of the Young Explorers Center and the assets there. So, and I will also just point out, I know I pointed this out at the board meeting, but the most critical part of the AM reaccreditation report, as far as inclusion within the strategic plan, obviously was the management and upgrades of the Douglas Avenue facility. So, like I said, just about everything else we felt could be addressed in our day-to-day operations. So I'll just open it up to any kind of questions that people might have about some of these goals that we presented here and at the board meeting. Just to refresh memories, I know you already have this document, but I'll go ahead and go back to the first section as well. We could use some creative input on the fourth point. It doesn't have to be in this specific committee meeting, but the strategic uses of some of our assets. So, you know, we know what kind of classroom programming that we anticipate conducting out on the education pavilion and so forth. We know we're going to be using Douglas Avenue for storage. We already give tours and so forth, but if there's creative uses of these spaces or these opportunities, one thing we're taught, what would be really nice is if we had, you know, an education staff that was large enough that people can call and ask for tours. We do have the situation where with enough lead notice, people can call and pay for a tour, but we don't get many takers on that, you know. So, you know, while the tours I think are extremely effective, they're very eye-opening for the people who go on them. That's something that I think, you know, from the the standpoint of the general public, we might still be underachieving on and can improve. So, but really, it's just a matter of what does that look like? You know, what does that look like for the people who come to this museum, and what does it look like for the staff? Do we have the staff capacity to take people away from what they're doing to give, say, a 30 or 45-minute tour? So these are just a few things I just wanted to point out, and would love at any point to accept some input. Or maybe one thing that's effective is if you visit another museum elsewhere and you see a solution to whether it's space use or any other specific programming and so forth, we're always happy to take that. Tom, for instance, he travels to a lot of museums, and he'll just text me a couple of pictures, and then we put it into our our discussion queue.
Joe, when you talk about creative uses, are you talking about things like events? I mean, I feel like we were thinking about events like not weddings, but you know, stuff like that. But I haven't heard you talk about that in a while. Wasn't that a staff drain? I feel like maybe that came up. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I mean, it's a new asset for us in terms of when we run festivals, for instance, right? We have a new space to use, you know, and so that's just one example there. In the case of the tours, again, we give them already, but is there a way to kind of, I don't know, present it better so that way people, when they come here and visit, that they understand that they can get that special experience and upcharge, just the same phrasing I used with the Petra display that we had a week or so ago.
I don't think I got my answer about events.
I'm sorry, what was the specific, like, are you saying that we have enough events, we're overstretched?
No, I thought at one time you were thinking about using the new space behind the museum for events like parties and things like that. Is that
Yes.
something that you're still doing, you're still pursuing? I sort of remember a conversation about it being too much staff time, but as far as a creative use of space, that was one you had contemplated. I was wondering if that's still a thing.
Yeah, it is, in fact. So next month, what I intend is next month, right? Yeah, in September, what we're going to do is we're going to try a museum happy hour, some kind of themed, opportunity for folks to come by after hours. And we've got some local musicians that will basically pay for or play for tips. And through the foundation, we can sell some soft drinks and beer and wine. We'll just get our ABC license for that and see how the community responds, because we don't have real outdoor spaces that people can go and be social and so forth. So we might try that for the first couple months of the autumn before the temperatures start to drop, and just see how people respond to it. So and then as far as sustaining it, yeah, we're gonna have to see how it fits in to all that we're doing now. But I think the only way to learn that is to go and do it.
Yeah, and then kind of on the operational staff side, we've increased the deposit fee to try to disincentivize people trashing the place. So hopefully that'll help clean up quicker and limit our staff time. Just increasing that deposit and really being firm on if they're going to get it back or not, and being detailed and outlining what their responsibilities are as a guest here at the museum.
Yes.
Okay.
So maybe some language that would specify third-party events would help get the ball rolling and people thinking more about different ways or different groups that could be approached or made aware of this space. I was just thinking, we had that dinner out there the other night, and I thought it was a nice place. It was a beautiful evening. It was just the right size for our group. So maybe it could be used for third-party events like team building exercises, or if an agency in the area is looking for a meeting space to have a dinner or a working lunch or something like that, if they knew that this kind of a space was available, maybe that's something that would attract interest.
Art, I like that, utilizing specific examples. I think the way our language is, you just want to rent a space, come rent ours,
Yeah.
But if we have examples of maybe even a couple of images, I mean, they don't have to be real images, stock images, yeah. And give that a go.
And there's also the possibility, and not to burden staff any more than they are already, but at certain times of the year, that could be a Friday night gathering spot at the museum, where you open it up for members or some special event. Just come and see us as we are. But there would be some sort of hosting station or something out there where people could come and relax and have a drink and have a snack and then go home, just to spend a few hours.
Yeah, I think we're going to be kind of tinkering with that exact kind of concept. So, I was saying the happy hour, we can take on a variety of forms. And we also have to think about what night of the week, is good. Because I know there are other things going on in Martinsville and so forth. So we'll have to kind of play around with it and see how it works. But definitely want to do something with it, for sure. All right, I don't know if anybody wants to discuss any other of these points. I'll bring these back up and so forth. our intention, just bring up my calendar here. Our intention is to have the metrics, the timeline and any measurables associated with these points emailed to the Board of Trustees during the first, say, by the first full week of October. So that should give board members plenty of time to review them in preparation for review at the board meeting, and then take on comments on any kinds of edits that might need to be made. But then the objective, of course, would, if the board is willing, to get approval of this 5-year plan, and then we'll execute on distributing it.
I was just going to mention back to the two spaces, the Pavilion and Douglas Avenue, either or both. I think you would want to make sure in your language that you don't box yourself in, because there are unknowns as to like what the appetite is. And I think it would be more of that you're going to position those two spaces as strategic tools to advance education, community vitality, and organizational stability. And then you figure out how to do that, but and not be so scripted or prescriptive. And that encompasses everything. And then the other piece, if you could develop a recurring partnership, specifically with the Pavilion, where that there's an organization, a business that wants to use the space, twice a year, whatever, recurring, in a way that it doesn't tax staff that they have to be available to do something.
Yeah, I like that idea. We do have some examples of that maybe already that we might be able to expand on. There are various groups, for instance, that rent the museum at least once a year. And, with that, we could probably set up something that would, kind of lock them in a way, And about all we do, I think we just put out tables and chairs, and during any hours that we're open, we have a buildings and ground staffer available. But beyond that, these are events and so forth that don't require a lot of staff input. So, does anybody else have any questions on or comments on these particular points? We look forward to sharing out the metrics here in just a bit over a month or so.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Agree.
You want me to walk through the timeline then, Melanie?
Sure. So that's in the agenda. That'd be fine if you want to do that.
Yeah, it's up to you. So the update is what we're going through now. It'll be the pleasure of the strategic planning committee if you would like to meet one more time. So if I get this to you in early October, if we meet, say, a couple of weeks or so in front of the board meeting to walk through those measurements, we give another shot of review. Again, entirely up to you. So we will reach out to the committee at the appropriate time and make sure that you're in agreement to either meet or just save it for the board meeting. And then we present at the full board meeting, and then it shouldn't take a lot to get this published. We'll first make it widely available via PDF, and then we'll have hard copies available for distribution.
I don't mind convening a meeting beforehand if that would save time at the end for us to go through and just talk through anything. But I'll leave that to the other folks.
Okay. Yeah, we'll reach out and we'll get everyone's input or thoughts. And if something significant or important or otherwise intriguing comes up, then maybe that'll justify a committee meeting, and if not, then not.
Okay, and at a minimum, you would share that draft with us so that we could review it and look through it and
Yeah,
provide.
so the week of, I think it's October 5th, is the week we're gonna target to distribute it. And then we'll give you at least 2 weeks to review it. And we'll get we'll have the opportunity to convene this committee one more time in advance of the board meeting.
Okay.
You know what's really not in here? It's implied, but not in here. Is working with our communities. We do it, right? We do it in Waynesboro a ton. We just did it with those signs we dedicated. Wilson Park, by doing that, we'll be working with our communities. I mean, it's a very much implied, but it's also something that I don't know. It's just sort of it's a little. It would be. I would hate for it not to come through because it's such an important part of what we do.
Let me see how we can, this obviously is just a punch list.
Yeah.
When we develop the document, stuff like that can easily get called out.
Yeah.
And I think we can make sure that people will recognize that, we work with it's not just the school systems, but it's the city and the county,
Yeah.
the homeschoolers. As Ryan likes to point out in the annual page in his advanced report, you see all of the boards and so forth, a lot of which are either regional or local that the museum works with. So yeah, that can easily get called out. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Ryan can take care of that. You can, achieve that with photos, but yeah, it could be as minimal as just a graphic that working, that you've worked with X number of communities, partners, just, I know the number's a lot.
I think that's important. We're not just doing stuff. We're also working with people as we do stuff, right? Because we're doing it for them. We're doing it with them.
Yep.
Doing it for our customers. We're doing it with our stakeholders. We're doing it with our employees. It's the whole people aspect is important.
All right.
They're the reason we're doing it. A lot of it anyway.
I think it does all come back to, to people. I mean, why do we have collections? It's to learn more about, the earth around us to help us protect and conserve and preserve it, and there's got to be a reason to do that. And, I'm kind of partial to oxygen and clean water and stuff,
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of other people who would be too.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of our state mandate, but certainly emphasizing community partnerships would be important.
Yeah, we'll find a creative way to make sure that's not just implied, as Lisa said, but that we'll see it.
Thanks for bringing that up, Lisa. I think
Yeah.
that's a good point. Just that natural history is something that's good for everyone. It's not just educational,
Right.
but it's part of our fabric, the how we work with each other.
Right. I just found that event in Waynesboro very inspiring, and that was, it was a combination of what we're trying to do and then how it affects people pretty directly with the signage, et cetera. So that's what made me think about it.
Nice.
My brain is working now. Our taxidermy.
I still like that acronym, which has already slipped off my brain. So
You wrote it down.
dead
So
stuff.
Kathy, that was a little throwback to the last meeting.
All right. Any other items for discussion?
Yeah, Joe, if you just keep us appraised of the library book situation.
I will.
Because, to me, when I read through the report, that was the one thing that was very obvious. And I think it's something that's fairly straightforward to resolve, at least in terms of putting in the short terms, air conditioning units and some sort of a monitoring system. And if there's an opportunity to convey that to the committee, that's been handled, that would be great.
Yeah, we'll give you a report out here very shortly.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to see that taken care of right away.
I
Please.
will.
Okay.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, well, thanks, Ryan, Jennifer, Jonathan, Joe. I'm not sure if Zach's on here, but thank you for your support and helping us convene today. And this meeting is adjourned.
All right.
All right.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. It's good to see you all.
Thanks. Bye.